Good evening and welcome to our continuation of going through all of the books of the Bible beginning at Genesis. So, tonight we are on Genesis chapter 7. Please get your notebook, your journal, whatever device you take notes on. I want you to be able to write down your questions, write down your revelations, write down visions if you have them, but be ready to record whatever it is that goes through your brain as we go through this chapter. Okay? Chapter 7, verse 1. Then the Lord said to Noah, "Come into the ark, you and all your household, because I have seen that you are righteous before me in this generation. You shall take with you 7 each of every clean animal, a male and his female, 2 each of every animal of animals that are unclean, a male and his female." So now we see that God gets a little bit more specific, right? 7 males and females of clean animals, and then the pairs that are unclean, right? So remember, at this point, they are sacrificing animals to God, and we see this first recorded with Abel, right? Verse 3. Also 7 each of birds of the air, male and female, to keep the species alive on the face of the earth. Okay? For verse 4, for after 7 more days I will cause it to rain on the earth 40 days and 40 nights, and I will destroy from the face of the earth all living things that I have made. Verse 5. And Noah did according to all that the Lord commanded him. All, right? Even the particulars. Verse 6. Noah was 600 years old when the flood waters were on the earth. So chapter 5, it told us that Noah was 500. So between 100 years, the ark was created and built by the time the flood waters came. Verse 7. So Noah, with his sons, his wife, and his sons' wives, went into the ark because of the waters of the flood. Verse 8. Of clean animals, of animals that are unclean, of birds, and of everything that creeps on the earth. Verse 9. 2 by 2 they went into the ark to Noah, male and female, as God had commanded Noah. Verse 10. And it came to pass after 7 days that the waters of the flood were on the earth. So it looks like he only had 7 days to get all of these animals situated in the earth. Verse 11. In the 600th year of Noah's life, in the 2nd month, the 17th day of the month, on that day, all the fountains of the great deep were broken up, and the windows of heaven were open. So you had torrential rain falling down, right? And then also water coming up from the depths of the sea. Okay, so you got rain coming down and water coming up. Verse 12. And the rain was on the earth 40 days and 40 nights. Verse 13. On the very same day, Noah and Noah's sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth, and Noah's wife and the 3 wives of his sons with them entered the ark. You see, it's kind of going back and forth, right? Verse 14. They and every beast after its kind, all cattle after their kind, every creeping thing that creeps on the earth after its kind, and every bird after its kind, every bird of every sort. There are thousands of different species of animals, of birds, right? But they all had to fit into this ark that was a little over 3/4 of an acre big, okay? And yes, it had 3 different levels on there as well. Verse 15. And they went into the ark to Noah, 2 by 2, of all flesh, in which is the breath of life. Verse 16. So those that entered, male and female of all flesh, went in as God had commanded him, and the Lord shut him in. So remember, in the last chapter I asked, how did the animals know to come to the ark, right? Because God led them there, okay? Everything else obeys. The plants, the trees, right? All of nature, all of the animals, everything else obeys. The wind, the rain, the sun. Except man, we have the hardest time simply obeying God. Even the animals' obedience to go into the ark, right, was for their salvation. We don't read about the birds or the cattle saying, hey, Let's go into this wooden thing, or let's not. We've been free this whole time to roam the earth wherever we wanted to go. Or, hey, do you know that monkey? I don't know that monkey. Let's not go into the ark. Do you know those people? These are the things that we do, right? We're not doing anything that makes us uncomfortable. But the animals obeyed to go into the ark, right? So, verse 17. Now the flood was on the earth 40 days. The waters increased and lifted up the ark, and it rose high above the earth. Verse 18. The waters prevailed and greatly increased on the earth, and the ark moved about on the surface of the waters. For that much rain coming down and water coming up, right? In order for it not to topple over, can you imagine the waves, the height of the waves, right? So it had to be the hand of God that was keeping this boat afloat. And remember that there was not an engine. He didn't have a team of people rowing. There was no way to steer this boat. They were completely reliant and trusting in God, completely, right? Verse 19 says, and the waters prevailed exceedingly on the earth, and all the high hills under the whole heaven were covered. There was no land seen anywhere. Just as it was on the third day. Remember, on the third day, he had to separate the water from the land so that the dry land could appear, right? Verse 20, the waters prevailed 15 cubits upward, and the mountains were covered, right? And remember, 15 cubits is from your fingertip to your elbows, about 18 inches, right? So 15 cubits would measure about 22 and a half feet on top of the highest mountain. So these waters were 22 and a half feet higher than the highest mountain, okay? 21, and all flesh died that moved on the earth, birds and cattle and beasts and every creeping thing that creeps on the earth, and every man. Verse 22, all in whose nostrils was the breath of the Spirit of life, all that was on the dry land died. So for the wickedness of man, which he created from the dry land, everything on the dry land had to die, right? We are the only ones, even though all of the animals have the spirit of life, the breath of life, and then we're the only ones that are made in the image of God with choice, with free will, right? But because of sin, because of that knowledge of good and evil, right, wickedness continued to increase. And when man began to openly worship God after Seth was born, remember we talked about that in chapter 4, in order to do that, when you begin to have a relationship with God, now there is a standard, right? There's a standard somewhere where men walked with God. In order for Noah to be called righteous, right, there had to be a standard of holiness. So we see God's response to those who walk contrary to what he says, right? Very early, God gives instruction and he gives consequence. If you eat of this tree, you shall surely die, right? So whenever things are looking harsh or looking unbearable, ask yourself, is this a consequence of a sin, before you automatically go to why would God do X, Y, Z? Was there an instruction that God gave to mankind, maybe to the person that you're under their authority, right? Was that instruction not followed? And you need to know this, right? He kicked out 2 of his created beings out of a place that was self-sufficient for disobedience, right? He cursed Cain to be a vagabond and a wanderer. God also shortened our years. These are consequences, right? Consequences to disobedience to God and wickedness. And then finally, the final straw, they were so wicked, only Noah was found righteous, right? And because he was found righteous, his family was saved. Now he decides to kill everything, right? Except for those creatures in the sea. So he did not do this without reason. The wickedness had to get to a point where it was not able to be salvaged, right? So how wicked do you have to be for God to even want to kill the animals that's on the earth. Like, how much wickedness did it have to be? Verse 23. So he destroyed all living things which were on the face of the ground, both man and cattle, creeping thing and bird of the air. They were destroyed from the earth. Only Noah and those who were with him in the ark remained alive. Verse 24. And the waters prevailed on the earth 150 days. So even after that 40-day rain, the water still did not recede until after some time. So where we are now in time, we live in a wicked time, right? When we think about what would make God kill everything and start over, the wickedness that we see daily, all right, that we have now grown accustomed to, right? It doesn't even shock us anymore, some of the things that we hear that has gone on. We've become desensitized to the world, right, to the wickedness. And the danger with this is that because we've become desensitized, we stop praying, right? We stop praying for our families. We stop praying for our communities, our nation, our leaders, right? And not only that, we start more leaning towards or being drawn towards that line that separates a child of God from the world, okay? God loved man, and he desired to constantly have us in his presence, right? But man loves himself. Man loves his desires, okay? So if God decided to destroy the world today, would you be one of the ones that's found righteous, right? Would you be one of the ones who he spared? And so if you think about even your family, because of your righteousness, because of the favor attached to you, they could be spared as well, just as he spared Noah's sons and their wives. It didn't say that they were righteous. It said Noah was righteous, right? But even the obedience of the animals obeyed. So I think free will can be a blessing and it can be a curse, right? Free will is good when we are submitted to God, right? Because we don't do the things, even though we have the knowledge of evil, we don't do evil. And so this mindset of I can do what I want, that's the mindset of someone who desires to do evil, right? Because if you desire to do good, your mindset is to please your Creator, to please your Father. And so I just want us to think about that, how wicked the world was and is still now. However, God promised he will not destroy the world again by water, okay? So we're not going to drown, but there may be some other devastation that happens for our disobedience. So when God tells us not to do something, it's not for control, it's for protection, right? He's protecting us the same way we protect others from things that we know will happen, right? We say, hey, don't do this. Not to control you, but hey, we've been down that road already. We know what happened, and God knows ultimately what happened. So when he tells us not to do something or we can't have something, it's for our protection. He knows even if that thing appears to be a good thing, right? But it's not a God thing. So think about that. Don't be so angry with God because you didn't get what you want. Ask him, what is it that you see that I can't see? And trust that he knows better, right? There's no way we could know better than God. So God bless you all, and I will see you all tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. where we will be discussing chapter 8. God bless.